Wayne, how did you like your balls when they came? Oh, wait. No.
We need to be off camera for that one.
Sweaty. He liked them
Shorn.
Okay.
Shorn.
You're
Shorn.
Sorry, wait a minute.
Line of the day, Wayne. Line of the day.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Southpaw. This is episode 12. It's a pleasure to be back on our regular schedule. The gang is mostly here. I'll go around. Bill Pulsifer is with us today.
Hello.
What did you call yourself? Willie
T. Ribs.
Willie T. Ribs. All right.
Not so famous racing car driver.
Wayne Franklin is next to Mr. Ribs. How are you, Wayne?
What up?
We have Wayne's bestie right below here. Will Oman's back with us. What's going on, man?
Uh-oh.
We cannot hear you.
He did it on purpose. I thought he was lip syncing on purpose. I thought he was. You should have said, I was doing that on purpose.
All right, okay. Well, hello again, Will.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, perfect. And last but not least, I'm Budsman Jones. Rocco Constantino's with us. How are you, my man?
Good. How's everything going, guys?
Good, man. You got brakes on your car? You're not going to go sliding off any cliffs, anything of that nature, correct?
$1,200 later, 4 new brakes.
Hey.
That boy.
Well, listen, last night we were talking about this a little bit, so I figure, why not? This is a good show. This is Bill brought this up, and it's a great point. The number of top-line starters that are going down, getting Tommy John surgery, it's more than ever. Wondering if maybe you guys have opinions on why. I know on Ball 9 today, Kevin Kernan wrote about exactly this, so the timing is perfect. We've seen the news about Garrett Cole. We don't know exactly what's going on with him. He's going to see Dr. Elatosh, which is never a good sign, but, again, still no definitive diagnosis on what's going on with his elbow. But Bill, you brought up a great point. It's one hell of a starting rotation that's out for the year already. I'm going to let you start and just go with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Tommy John has always been a thing, obviously, since Mr. John had the first surgery all the way back in the 70s. But it seems like the majority of the guys that we're hearing about now are more bigger names than we heard about in the past. I mean, I was a Tommy John patient or victim as a young player coming up and wasn't quite established as a star or anything like that. But I mean, I was trying to think back to the names of guys that were stars in my time and in our time. And I can only really come up with like John Smoltz as a guy that went down with Tommy John. And I believe he actually might've even had it twice. But it seems like the names that you're hearing now, like the names that I listed with Alcantara, Buehler, DeGrom, Dustin May, who hasn't quite actually reached star status yet, but if he would have been healthy over the last 2 years, with the
his hair has.
What's that big hair, guys? Yes.
His hair has reached star status.
His hair has. Well, that reached star status before
it's like its own planet.
Before and yes, but I think that there's a multitude of reasons that I figured we could probably get into a little bit and discuss whether we agree, disagree as to the causes of some of these. Not just minor league guys that lost their career due to Tommy John, but we're talking about, frontline starters, $30-40 million a year guys that are blowing their elbows out. It seems like on a regular basis now.
All right. Will, you had a little something to say before we actually hit record, so I'm going to let you take the floor.
Well, I mean, I think from the macroeconomic spectrum, I don't think that the powers that be are concerned with the names as much as the function, because what's being done in the game now, because I mean, the game of baseball itself is a math equation, and you roll out there and we played 9 innings and there's between 7 and 12 hits, 7 and 12 strikeouts, 3 to 6 walks, all this stuff. And if you take combined approaches, it just kind of pans out and works. and then you play 162 and you play those averages. So they're building models to create what their best chance is. And this goes all the way back to the Oakland A's and Moneyball stuff.
Haven't won.
Absolutely.
But you project it out.
Haven't won.
Yeah, because when you're built for 162, that's a long range thing. But when you get into the trenches and you're talking about a 7-game set, a 5-game set, God forbid a 3-game set, you have to have horses that carry you. And that's why Oakland always made it to the first round, but never had the big guns to put down the Yankees in the division. So macroeconomic, you sign a guy for a big deal and you insure his contract and he gets hurt. Well, that's a devastating blow to you over the macro, but you have a guy that can fill in that spot, and you take your projection and you use his pitches and you figure out a way to piecemeal it together. And that's really what they're doing now, and no fault of their own. I mean, that's just how the game has evolved. But to Bill's point, when you're talking about frontline guys, I think it's all in this chase. Everybody, you don't want to get left behind. I mean, how many names were in the Mitchell report? I was too scared to take steroids or HGH because if my name got attached to that, I was like, I might get blackballed. I might not ever get to play again. But I'm telling you right now, if somebody had slid that across the table and told me I wasn't going to get caught, I was for sure taking it to up my chances. If I gave a secretary a pill right now and she'd go from 60 words a minute typing to 300, yeah, she'd take it too. So, everybody's chasing velocity. Everybody's chasing this idea that they want more.
And so I think
that's where people get hurt.
Yeah, I think that in the top, look, we were all competitors. I think these top line guys know the numbers of other guys that are top line guys. And we're not just talking velocity numbers, because spin rate numbers is a thing now. It's something that, I wouldn't be surprised if they're not posting that pitch by pitch now in the stadiums, because in our day, when I first came up, and I came up a little bit before you guys, there was no mile per hour on each pitch until a few years later, or maybe there was one stadium or two stadiums where you knew you could turn around and see how hard you threw each pitch. So I knew
where every gun in every stadium was.
We all did at the.
I let the pitch go. I saw the swing or the no swing, and I was immediately, what was it?
At it, right?
Because I had to know whether or not I was in danger that day.
So I think that the guys are looking at spin rates as well, and they're comparing their spin rates as well as velocities, and they're trying to make sure that their names as the frontline guys, because they're obviously the most competitive of the competitive, they know these numbers. They're looking for those numbers, and they look for them, and they want to make sure that their breaking ball has the most spin, or their fastball has the most spin, or least amount of drop. And I think that's definitely has something to do with what's going on. And I look at Ohtani. I watched him. He showed his grips, and I think I've said this before on the show. Exactly 0 of his grips conform to what grips have been. I mean, if you ask the three of us, show me your slider grip, show me your 4-seam grip, show me your 2-seam grip, show me your curveball grip, they would all resemble each other. All three of us.
Right.
You look at Ohtani's pitches, and exactly 0 of them resemble a normal, quote unquote, grip for these pitches that have been thrown for 100+ years. You can't tell me that that's not having something. Yeah, look it up. It's insane. I wish I could post the video, but I'm not a tech whiz. But I watched it. He throws every single one of his pitch irregular to what the three of us would be holding. It's and don't tell me it doesn't have something to do with the stress and strain on the forearm and the forearm wanting to give out.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm going to jump in and say the thing of Ohtani is he's a freak, but the second TJ with him is as a result for me in that he came here and he bulked up. He got heavier. And as far as throwers go, when you're putting on weight, even if it's as little as 10 to 15 pounds, if that weight exists from your shoulder to your hand, that's way more stress on your elbow. Because now you're having to move that amount of weight that much faster. And so you're training for velocity and you're adding weight to it. It's just stress on something. I mean, all the UCL is, the ulnar collateral ligament is a rope.
Yeah.
It's a piece of rope. It's held together when you release the ball. It's held together by your muscle tissue. It has. I mean, once you go above, Billy, you and I have talked about this 100 times, with your son and other kids that we're training and stuff. And you go, once you're above 85 miles an hour, if there's no muscle, just independently, the UCL cannot handle anything over 85.
Yeah, technically should break on every single pitch. Really,
exactly. So once you're north of that, there's nothing you can do to stop the pop, but there's things you can do to mitigate your risk. And gaining weight is not one of them.
Well, to your point, Will, and I think it makes sense. I mean, look at a guy like Syndergaard. That kind of happened to him too. I mean, all of a sudden he's gigantic and have an elbow problem, shoulder problems, whatever he's having. So I can completely see that. It's not something I really
janky robotic arm action.
Yeah, no, it's actually a really good point. Wayne, I want to get your thoughts on this before we get into other possible reasons why this is happening.
I think all the above is right. There's so many things that go into it. Just when Bill was talking, it made me think of something. Used to be, I had a pitching coach one time who told me, you throw a great slider and you're throwing it for strikes and they're not hitting it. They're not even close to it. Why would you go and try to make the next one better? I mean, you get guys tighten their grip. They'll try to create more spin with it. And
Bingo.
But why? Why if you go 0-2 with two sliders, why would you make the third one better or even try? Probably not going to, first of all. Second of all, you're in danger, I think, after that. You throw that really perfect one of yours, which is, pretty specific to everyone. They have their own best one, but why try to make it better?
I was always told that there is no bestest. The word doesn't exist. So when you throw your best, you stick with it. And I know I deal with that on a regular basis with with the kids that I work on, with their breaking balls. They throw a good one, and right away they're looking for an absolutely better one than that, as opposed to trying to reinforce. Let me hone in the one that I know how to throw and throw it relatively consistently over and over and over again. So I totally agree with what you're saying, Wayne.
Yeah, I think that that just creates. I think creating tighter grips and everything. Once you get past that, there's a threshold for everybody. Unfortunately, we don't know what that is. So.
But these guys can go in between innings and look at spin rates, and they can see, I think I can crank it another 100 RPMs. I think I can get another few RPMs out of that. Instead of
why?
I believe it's going on. Those guys are sitting in the dugout with iPads looking at shit, and they're looking at numbers. I totally believe it. Firmly believe it.
Yeah,
as opposed to staying focused on pitching and staying into the game and worried about who's coming up to hit next. I believe that these guys are focused on numbers because
sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, and
you want more spin. You want more spin on something, and not using pine tar or sunscreen and rosin. Just chew a piece of Bubblicious, lick your tongue, fake a wipe. That sugar is going to get on the ball. You're going to spin it faster. It ain't that hard.
The moisture, any kind of moisture on the fingers too, will create a little grip against that ball too.
Wayne, just what you had said. Sometimes less is more. Rocco, as you know, in the glory days of MTV, David Bowie would say too much is never enough, if you remember those commercials. But when is too much enough with this, in your opinion? When do you say enough is enough, and you kind of go back to, like what Will said, chew a piece of bubble gum, lick your fingers, and, maybe just stop trying to crank it. Stop trying to grip it and crank it so much.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to take some organizational philosophy change somewhere that's going to show some kind of, success with that. Say pick the Cubs. Cubs have a change in philosophy. They implement it throughout their minor league system. It goes a few years, and they could demonstrate that this has shown, less injuries to the elbow and shoulder. Then you start getting the copycats. I mean, we always say that with sports that, they're all copycat leagues. So it's going to take somebody to do that. I don't know if that's going to end up happening, but that's what it's going to take is somebody finally having enough of that. It was like Will said earlier too. Do the organizations really want to do that? Are they? The contracts are insured. The plug and play guys. It's a take 199 mile an hour guy out and put another one in, and you get the front office people telling them that. People believe it, and that
jersey sales. The name on the back of the jersey is what sells. The name on the front is not why you buy the jersey. You like the team.
Yeah, well, but not anymore
name
because
on the back.
Fanatics made a bad
It's
jersey.
this big, yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants that jersey now.
Which one?
Nobody
Fanatics.
wants
The
the
new one.
Fanatics jersey anymore.
I'm sorry, but real quick,
You can't even read the name on the back.
Awful on the pants. The worst ever. Worst ever.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
you know-
What are we doing?
I wanted to ask, I mean, how much do you think, and Will, you had brought this up the other day, how much do you think the pitch clock is adding to this too? Because there's not enough time for these guys to recover in between pitches, and they're chasing velocity, they're throwing a million, and they can't dictate the pace.
I think there are significant problems with that, and just recuperation, and also you're trying to do this plug and play thought process, and there's a conditioning aspect to it. I think you can condition the pitchers to be able to recover faster. I mean, like extreme example would be if you've read Andre Agassi's biography and how he could go from from a volley in tennis and have a heart rate of 160, and within 15 seconds he would be back at a resting heart rate of below 70. You're talking about an optimally conditioned athlete, and I think that can be done.
So running.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about crazy anaerobic workouts,
Is that a thing still?
no, it is not, because you
Right.
have to manage their workload.
Right.
And when I was coaching professionally, I would see these guys, and everything was done from this managing workload or medical rehab standpoint, and it's confining things to this point. So now you're taking your optimal athlete and you're putting restriction on him and saying you can only work this hard. Well, injuries are going to go up as a result. I mean, everybody thinks that 120 feet is long toss. That's not long toss. 240 feet plus, that's long toss. That's where you're throwing the ball far. Okay. And you want velocity? Throw the ball farther. It literally maths out. It's not hard.
Without question.
So it's like if I want to take a wild Mustang and keep all the properties of the wild Mustang, I'm not going to put him in a 20 by 20, fenced in area. I might put a fence up and give him the freedom to roam, but it's going to be a really big freaking fence. And so they're doing all this stuff that limits the ability of these guys to actually condition themselves. But I mean, 16 seconds, man. If I have to cover as a left-hander or right-hander, doesn't matter. If there's a ground ball to the 3-4 hole with a runner on second base, and I've got to run to cover first, and then it gets through to the outfield, and then I've got to run back behind home plate, okay, to cover the throw that is eventually coming home, and then get that ball and in 16 seconds be ready to throw a nut cutter pitch. That's a big ask.
Mm-hmm.
And there's ways to condition it, but they're not doing it properly. So it's a holistic aspect where you're like, the training doesn't match the ask. And now that's why we see, guys are training for velocity. Good. I love it. Throw harder. That helps. Less time for the hitter to react. But if you're doing it under a medical constraint, then you've already beaten yourself. And they're not looking at the totality of the picture. Just my opinion. Here endeth the rant.
Wayne, let's go to you on this.
Oh man, that's hard to follow, right?
Somebody had to do it, man.
I think
I believe in you, Wayne.
Will is on to that. I mean, that's something big. Conditioning. I mean, we all know this when we playing that was the thing. That was the thing. I even heard Pedro Martinez talk about it one time. His brother Ramon taught him that no matter what you do, make sure you do your conditioning, no matter what else you do. That is the one thing that has to be a constant, is your conditioning. And I always remember that, and I learned that, I was in A-ball. And, it used to be they liked a little extra body fat on the pitchers, the Dodgers did. They wanted pitchers between like 10 and 12% to carry you through a season. That extra bit of baby fat will get you through a season. Whereas position players, they wanted like 8 or less, between 6 to 8. I came into spring training, my first professional spring training. I was at 8%, and I got in trouble. I got yelled at, man. I got scolded pretty good, but that's a good scolding to take, But so they must have been on to something then. I mean, everybody sees patterns and things. How come they aren't picking up patterns now and going to their general manager and say, hey, we got patterns on why these guys are blowing out? Why aren't they putting any emphasis on that?
Because the guys that are doing it didn't play, so they don't know. They don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, it makes ball players feel more like cattle when there's not much care about why guys are getting injured.
A lot of t-shirt models out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's ways to be a professional baseball player, and I think a lot of things that were done all those years. I mean, why didn't they change all those years? You know, all of a sudden they're just going to absolutely tabula rasa, start over, and go from there. But I don't know. I Will's definitely on something with the conditioning part. There's a way to do it, and that whole pitch clock thing, that's a strategy thing. Guys used to slow down the pace to get momentum back, or they would speed it up to get it back. You know, let the pitchers dictate that. I mean, they're going to cater to the fans, though. They're going to cater to the fans. I mean, extent.
But are they even the fans? I mean, like they're trying to get new people into baseball by doing this,
right?
You know, I am a fan. You know, and I'm like, I'm seeing what the results are.
I think what they're creating
is
not fanatical kind of teachers.
Yeah, that's
real fans.
Point. Will,
my biggest problem with the pitch clock is not the conditioning aspect. It's not the rush aspect. It's not even the money-making aspect where you can bunch together the number of pitches, aggregate them, and figure out how much money you can sell for ads or how many ads you can sell for money because you've figured out what the time frame of your game is. My biggest problem with the pitch clock is that it dictates outcomes by the way the rule is written. If you go to the ultimate extreme, Game 7 of the World Series, you could truly have two pitchers, two teams take the field, take their at bats, and nary a pitch be thrown, and an outcome can be decided. That's the way it's written. Not a pitch thrown. You can have clock violations that result in bases loaded walk, gets you a run, and then nobody steps in the box on time, and the other guy throws a complete game shutout. So the first battle in this really is to have MLB re-examine the rule and go, okay, I'm fine with the count going to 3-2 on or 2 strikes or 3 balls, either way with pitch clock violations, but there should be no determining result that occurs on a clock violation. So you cannot walk a guy, you cannot strike out a guy. There is no outcome that is based on that clock.
It has to be
it has to be something that actually occurs. I love that. Yeah. It has to be an action, Wayne.
Because it is sport, right?
There's the first thing. and then you go, if we see enough, and I've been banging this drum since the time that they brought it in, what will occur, in my opinion, is no different than the nets over the dugout. When enough of these frontline guys get hurt, they're going to start re-examining the pitch clock, and they're going to go, okay, we're going to loosen the reins on this, and we're going to up it from 16 to 20 or to 22 or whatever, and then it will have its own heartbeat. And yeah, there are guys who work quicker and who work slower. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the flavor of the game. I mean, nobody wanted to be there at a Steve Traxel game, to be sure, because he was nicknamed the human rain delay.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course.
But that was how he pitched. John Lieber, on the other hand, great name from the past, he was a quick worker. Mm-hmm. Okay. And managers would literally call time, do things, guys would step out in order to break rhythm. I mean, pitching is disrupting rhythm and timing, hitting is rhythm and timing, and then you have the gameplay around it, and it's supposed to all be a dance. Yes. And it's been mathematized to a point where it has lost its flavor.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I really like what you said about
flavor. That's a good word.
That is good. But maybe that they will loosen the reins on it. And in that regard, did MLB institute it backwards? Maybe they should have let it go a little longer to start, let guys get used to it. Then tweak it.
No,
You wanna make it
1 year and then chop some more off of it. We'll just do 1 year.
Yeah.
We'll blow out a bunch of frontline starters and we'll chop some more
right.
time off of it.
Yeah, and then we'll make it even shorter. But
Let's dilute the game. Dilute the game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like let's throw 60% sliders, and now we've diluted that pitch.
Yeah.
You've diluted the break. It's just it's diminishing returns, and I don't think the average fan notices, but I don't think that MLB as a whole cares.
Yeah.
I don't think they care because the players are a commodity, but they are also cattle.
Absolutely.
You find out real quick. I think Glendon said this on our text thread. You don't realize how small of a piece you really are until you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only 22,000 plus that have ever put on the uniform and played an inning. And when you're done, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard and harsh reality to come to.
Yeah, we have moments. That's basically what we have. We have moments in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Bill and Ted, man, all we are is dust in the wind, dude. Dust.
As you had just said, you don't think the average fan notices, and by no means is Rocco an average fan. I mean, he's like, Yogi Bear is smarter than the average fan. But I want to get your perspective on it, just from what you're seeing and what you're watching, as a fan.
Is that a picnic basket?
Smells like a matty
Probably
goat.
been compared to Yogi Bear in different ways than that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As a fan, I sit here. I don't have an expertise in it. I wasn't, a professional pitcher. I don't have a kinesiology background or anything like that. I mean, just in general, the way pitching has changed over the years. I mean, it didn't happen this often. Maybe it was diagnosed less, and that's part of it, but I don't think that's all of it. I think that pitchers are, trained coming up to throw less and less. I don't know if that's necessarily working. I just, it's tough to make. There's a million different ways, a million different theories, and people much smarter than me don't have the idea with that. But Bill, did you have Tommy John? Bill,
I did right at 21 years old.
Yeah. What were your
22.
thoughts on like the cause of that, or did have you?
Well, I think that mine was multiple things. I think that I threw and we've talked about this before. I threw over 500 innings as a professional before I was 21 years old. And then I don't think that I had the best mechanics in the world as a young pitcher. But unfortunately, when you're doing very, very well and you're getting people out, they have a tendency to not change anything. So when I got hurt and I was told, well, you got hurt because of the way you throw, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I signed at 17. Why weren't we working on trying to change what you guys saw as a possibility of me getting injured? Because me and Will and I talked about this the other day through text. I believe that like the upper echelon guys, which anybody that makes it to the major leagues is some form of an upper echelon athlete. Obviously, there's levels inside of that as well. I think that I could have been taught some different techniques that could have possibly have helped me protect myself a little bit, but still be able to be successful and still be able to have my natural ability come out. So that was something that I felt like was handled incorrectly, and I don't know that that's the case nowadays. Where if you're getting people out and you're in the minor leagues, nobody's going to say a word about the way you throw the ball until you do get injured. And then unfortunately for me, which kind of screwed everything up, was when I did get injured. Then I had everybody trying to change everything, and what I did naturally, which was good enough to get me to the big leagues, I was told that I have to change it all, and that just kind of confused everything, completely.
Yeah, they wait till you got there.
Yeah,
that's different.
Yeah,
but
I didn't like that much. I got a point about something that I think that has something to do with it as well. And let me just real quick about the pitch clock. The way that I always kind of looked at it is, let's think of it as like a fighting game, like Mortal Kombat. You have your meter, and whenever you get into a scuffle and your meter goes down, well, you have to step.
I love this already.
Huh?
I love this. I love this already.
A little bit.
Hadouken.
Yeah, you gotta have to Street Fighter. You gotta step back a little bit before you engage again, so your meter can fill back up. So the pitching clock is not allowing these guys' meter to fill back up before they get into battle. And I think it makes perfect sense. We got to give them enough time for especially if they're going all out. You're throwing your special techniques out there. You're not just throwing your little leg kicks or something like that, when you're trying to get these major league hitters out. So I think that they need to allow these guys meters to fill back up before they go back in and throw their Hadouken. You're throwing your flyer. That takes a little bit more out of your meter. But that wasn't even my point that I wanted to make. My point that I wanted to make was I think that taking away the substances is definitely having something to do with this as well. And I don't believe that the balls are rubbed up the way that they used to be, because I'll tell you what, when I'm watching a game and they show right before the game and you have the ball sitting on the mound waiting for the starting pitcher to go out and grab it, and they do the close up on that ball, it damn sure looks pretty white to me. Like there's about nothing been rubbed on it. In our day,
have you felt the new rubbed up balls?
I haven't yet. Are they
they're
rubbed
terrible. It's a pre-rubbed ball. It's supposed to be uniform. It's terrible.
Oh my God, I'm dying to add to this.
Elbows are blowing left and right, so don't tell me that's a good thing, because it's not. We all know that.
Just those balls. The first time I saw them in the Arizona Fall League, they're trash.
I think that when we were playing, we didn't put shit on our arms. Shaving cream, alcohol, all of the stuff. We didn't do that firm grip. We did not do that in order to try to make our pitches better. We did that to try to combat the sweat that was dripping off of our arms and onto our hands in order for us to be able to command the baseball. Then the numbers started to get involved. And when the numbers got involved and guys started to realize that I can spin this ball even better, they started using shit that was made for not bodybuilders, the heavy world's strongest man guys. So they didn't drop the Atlas stones, which are these huge freaking stones. So that's when guys started to realize I can cheat with this. I never used it to cheat. Now, did it possibly make my pitches better? Probably, but I never once ever thought, you know what, if I can get this mixed just perfectly, I'll be able to rotate the ball another 100 RPMs towards home plate. So I think taking away the stuff, and these guys now having to try to figure out a way to grip the ball fucking harder just to get a grip of the ball is another reason why the elbows are popping popping.
You're right on to my theory. That's right on to my theory. I've always had a theory since they started tightening the seams on the balls, making the balls more compact to fly offensively. I think it's had an effect on grips. Because those big league balls, man, when you go from AAA to the big leagues, I remember doing that, and I could feel a difference in the seams immediately. I'm like, you need something to hold on to this ball, especially when you're in your first couple of days up. You can't feel that thing. You cannot feel that thing. And playing in a place like San Francisco all summer, dude, it's like 28 degrees on that field in July, man. That wind kicks. You need something to hold on to that ball. And I really think that the way they have tightened up the seams, the covers, and all of that.
Not allowing people to put anything on them. Like you're not even allowed to put rosin on your pants.
Imagine the strain in your arm. Imagine a strain in your arm, or especially your elbow, when you're trying to grip that tighter. Those fingertips start tightening. You can feel that in your elbow.
100%.
And I'm telling you, man, I've had a theory. I haven't gone through the process of proving it, but just from experience, I can tell you that I truly think there's something to that.
I 100% agree.
Well, how about, I don't know if it's the KBO or
Japan
where they use the pre-tacky ball. There's just something on the ball. What would you think about trying something like that?
I would love to see something. Yeah. Love to see something like that, because the fact that they're not allowing them even to put rosin on their the first thing I would do before I would go out to the bullpen was take the rosin bag and beat up my left thigh with the rosin bag and
Put a little
cover
water on
myself
it.
with rosin on my left leg, just so I could, once again, not cheat, dry my hand off in between pitches. So if the ball has a little bit of stick, it's still not going to stop the sweat, but it's definitely better than that big shiny ball that I see sitting on top of the rubber when they focus in before the Mets game tonight. You know, ooh, who's pitching tonight? Oh, there's the ball. It's a shiny white ball. That can't be. There's no way these guys can get a grip on it if you're not allowing them to use something. You know,
Right.
And I think that has something to do with injuries. I think that has something to do with walks. You know, the command is down. Of course, I can't grip the ball. You know, I can't grip the stinking ball. You want to even it out a little bit. Let's take away rosin and pine tar from the hitters. We'll even it out a little bit.
So
I
there's
mean,
They're just looking to get a
that's an
grip on the bat.
age-old argument. That's an age-old argument. I mean, of why, you know, hitters would always they'd get their panties in a wad. You know, you guys are always putting crap on the ball. And, you know, my response was, well, you're trying to hold the bat. I'm trying to hold my weapon. You're trying to hold yours.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
and there was no intention of making my stuff nastier. It was simply, I wanted to feel the ball better. Feel it. That's
They don't
all I
get it.
wanted. I wanted to know how the ball was coming off my hand. And, you know, there's variation, even if you have all things uniform in baseball, whether it's pre-rubbed or a circa 2005 baseball. Everything's uniform, but they're all different.
And that's why we
You
throw
can
the ball
feel
back.
if a seam is slightly elevated, if it's not. I mean, guys would scratch seams, whatever. You can do all sorts of things, but ultimately it comes down to, for a pitcher, how can I better feel the baseball leave my hand?
Yeah.
100%.
Well, that's Rocco. I think it was you did an interview with was it Mike Pagliarulo, who used to keep a thumbtack in his glove to kind of scuff it up to throw back to the pitcher.
Yeah, he circled it around. It was Pags that said that. Yeah, I think it was for Tommy John, and Necro too, if I remember right.
Yeah, and that's why the gloves they don't have the metal rings
Metal
around
eyelets.
where they're laced. That guys used to bend those to scuff the ball.
Yep. The Rawlings gloves were known for having the metal eyelets around the lacing.
That's
The
it.
guys would bend up the eyelets so there would be a little bit of a sharp edge. Me personally, my ball moved so freaking much, I didn't want anything wrong with the ball. I wanted the best ball that I could possibly get. I didn't want to scuff on it, nothing, because that's how I felt like I could then at least command the baseball a little bit. If I wasn't sure which way it was going to move when I threw it, when it wasn't scuffed, if I was going to throw a ball that was scuffed, I was asking for, double trouble there, because who knows?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was not a control guy, and if I saw a scuff, I was running away from it.
Get rid of it.
Tonight. I was like, get this away from me. I have no idea where my other one's going,
Totally
let
agree.
alone if it has extra.
Totally agree.
And you see that one you see it played over and over again. And I think even Greg Maddux did an interview with Pitching Ninja talking about the dirtiest sinker of all time that he threw. I want to say to Moises Alou,
The back door.
just a backdoor sinker, and it literally starts in the left-handed batter's box, and he comes
disgusting.
back and he talks about the scuff that was on it. And he's like, I got this. And he goes, and even he, who never talks about himself in high regard, he's just like, yeah, that was nasty. He's like, because there was a scuff on it like this big. And he's like, watch this.
If you guys watch the 30 for 30 about the 86 Mets, when they talk about Mike Scott and the scuffing of the ball, and they showed the ball that was signed by Mike Scott after I can't remember which game it was early in the series where he struck out like 17, 18 guys, something like that. There you go, Ombudsman. We got you a little something.
Oh, he knows this one already.
I know he does.
Just wait.
he definitely knows that
But
one.
if you look at that ball and how scuffed up that ball was, it's comical to see that ball was actually used in the game, and it wasn't a ball that we'd been playing catch out in the blacktop, and I made a few bad throws and bounced it on the concrete or on the blacktop a few times, and then brought it into the game. So that's there was definitely guys.
And actually,
Okay,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Rocco.
I was saying in my interview I interviewed Ed Hearn, and he said he still has the game balls from the 1986 NLCS. Still has them. He said he has a sock a sanitary sock that he stuffed the balls in on the way out to save them. And he said he's got like 8 or 9 of them, all scuffed in the same spot, all with the same kind of like a looping scuff on them. So he still got them.
Hey, listen, you got to tip your hat to the guys who could do that, because there's a saying in baseball, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And so everybody's been trying to catch an edge for years. Like Will said, I was not one of those guys. I needed a nice ball with nice seams and if it was scuffed at all, got to get rid of it. But I tip my cap to those guys could do it. I definitely wasn't one of those guys. But some of those pitches you see Mike Scott throw, if you look back at those, I mean, he was probably saying it was a split finger when it was probably just a fastball that he held on the scuff, and it was dropping 2.5 feet.
It was nasty. That was
throwing nose fingers up there.
Well, so we heard from Will and Bill. So Wayne, when you got a new ball from the umpire, I mean, you can't
even look me in the eye when you say that. You can't even look me in the eye when you see.
How did you like it when you got it back from the umpire? That's all.
Yeah, kind of like Bill said. I wanted to feel the seams. That's what I cared about. The seams had to feel right. They were usually pretty good. But if I did see a ball that had some sheen on it, I'd throw it back. I was like, this thing wasn't rubbed up.
Yeah, the darker the better.
Yeah. That sheen's got to be going off that baseball.
Well, that's
you know what's crazy? Something I do with the guys that I work with, the young kids, because I've done enough of the high school and the travel ball thing, where, especially in travel ball, very, very guilty of this. Not me, but travel ball itself, is they don't rub the balls up at all. So you'll get there to a tournament, and the umpire will be handed 4 balls, and he'll throw one out to the pitcher that's never been rubbed up. So I'm giving my pitching lessons, and we have huge crates of balls. And I always try to keep 2 balls that I feel like these would be game-worthy but baseballs. And they'll go and they'll grab a ball that's probably been in the batting cages for a few weeks. And they're like, I like the way this feels. And I tell them, wait a minute. You will never throw a ball like that in any of your high school games or any of your travel ball games come summertime or fall. Why in the world would you want to practice with a rag ball, which feels like we used to call them eraser balls because they would take the old baseballs and they'd put them in this tumbler that was full of old erasers and clean them off. Yeah. And they would have this fuzzy feeling to them. Sure, they feel good in your hand, but why would you want to practice with that? And then you go into your high school game and you have a rough start and you're walking a bunch of guys, and then you go to your coach and complain, the balls were slippery. Well, then why don't we practice with some balls that are a little more to what you're going to be actually throwing when you get in the game? And I guess once I explain it to them, it makes sense to them, because you got to try to get comfortable with something that is an uncomfortable thing, which sucks. But unfortunately, the umpires don't give a shit. They don't care. Yeah. The travel ball coaches, they don't know enough to care about their pitchers, whether, hey, just throw strikes. And I mean, how many times did we hear that? You don't think I'm trying to throw strikes? How would you give me a ball that's rubbed up and I can get a grip on it?
Well, that makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're not going to take BP with an aluminum bat and then just go out there and all of a sudden start swinging wood,
right. Worst advice ever given. That's the worst advice ever. Throw strikes.
Yeah,
thanks,
just
Coach.
Throw strikes. Oh, really? Oh,
thanks, Coach.
Jeez. Really?
Figured it out.
Yeah, tell the coach. You look at the coach and say, make good calls.
Yeah.
No joke. I heard that yesterday at a high school game.
Just throw strikes.
No, I heard from the dugout, very loud. The guy goes, "Throw strikes! It's going all over the place." I was like, you should be fired literally for that comment alone.
Tell me you've never stood on the mound without telling me you've never stood on the mound.
Is it that? Yeah. If it were only that easy, right?
Right.
Just 100%. And like, I've been in the dugout with managers who said that, and one time when I was in the minor leagues, and the guy will remain unnamed, but he yelled at a pitcher to throw strikes. Yeah, obviously he was frustrated. I mean, he walked 3 guys in a row, and he just had to wear the inning. And I just looked at the manager and just said, you know what? I always played better when people yelled at me. Always. And he looks at me he gave me the little Labrador puppy look. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't, you're not helping.
You're not helping.
I know you're trying to, but you're not.
Right.
Well, listen.
even give him a hum, babe.
Humbabe.
All right, Humbabe's even better. Yeah, Humbabe's not bad. Humbabe, come on. Dallas Green used to yell, "Bull your neck now, bull your neck." Not even sure what that meant, but I think he was trying to make sure you were being tough. Bull your neck now, Billy.
Oh, mercy. Well, listen, guys, we're getting to that point. But before we go to Rocco to do his ombudsmaning, I'm still not sure exactly.
Yeah, we didn't challenge. We didn't challenge him enough today.
I guarantee there's some stuff. I saw him working.
All right, good.
So I know what's. I see what's going on. I want to go around and get some final thoughts on this whole thing. Injuries. Is there anything that can happen to fix it, or is this just the way of the world now? And I will start. I'll just go around the horn. Wayne.
One thing I've been thinking about since we started talking before we even went on the air was, have we gone too far down this rabbit hole now to change the game? Is the game stuck the way it is? Because it's not really a game I like as much. Or has anyone come up with ideas, to figure out how guys are getting injured? Nobody's looking for patterns in that either.
None of them are conventional.
Yeah. I mean, we've gone so far down this rabbit hole that we're all stuck in this, this new matrix of math. It's like, we get it, but there is too much of a good thing, if it is a good thing, and why aren't we looking more into patterns, into why guys are getting injured? Why aren't we looking into those things, like the things we've talked about today? Does anybody look at that? Does anybody care? Are we truly cattle? Like as ball players, we already feel like we are anyway. So, that's, I guess that's the only thing I could say.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the putting toothpaste back in the tube thing. I mean, is it too late at this point?
Right.
I absolutely agree. Rocco.
I mean, it's such a complex and layered situation as far as injuries, not just arm injuries, injuries all across baseball. And it's been a big change in the way that athletes are training. You have less time with the teams in the off season. Everybody's out on their own personal trainer stuff, all these different methods, all that. And then you come back to the team and whatever's going on there. It just seemed like the way it used to be was a lot more streamlined, consistent. And that's how we go. Everybody's going to their own guru, teacher man, whatever, doing their own kind of things. And that's another can of worms. Aaron Judge getting injured there. And now everybody's saying, oh, is that because he's doing the, messing up his abdomen with the stupid teacher man stuff and snapping it? And it's well over my head, but I don't know. It's disheartening to see all the, you go into a season, your favorite team, and half of the guys probably aren't even going to make it through a whole season. I never used to be that way.
Yeah, you kind of just expect it at this point.
Yeah,
as
it's a shame.
Which does suck, but that is the way of the world. Will, you are up next.
I think to Wayne's point about injuries, injuries are unavoidable. There's a way to mitigate them. And we talked about conditioning. We talked about, it's not, we don't need a bunch of CrossFit players. What we need is long haul horses and guys that can take the ball. Zero managers have ever felt like a guy is a good player that is never available. So, being available is priority number one. I think to Rocco's point, where everybody has their own trainer, has their own guru, that's great. We're developing the game. I mean, there's absolutely no argument that the athletes at the major league level are better than they ever have been before. But are they sustainable athletes? Are they guys who are available? And when you really get into pitching and you mathematize pitching, it is finding an ecosphere where all of the pitches work together. It is not taking them as independent events like, ooh, I developed this nasty slider or sweeper in the off season. if it doesn't marry well to your fastball, then it doesn't fit in the ecosphere because the hitter can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And few guys are doing the work that is necessary with a guy that I'm working with, Perry Husband, and effective velocity, and understanding how and when and where to throw certain pitches so that they all look the same. It's not about getting 6 extra inches of horizontal or vertical break up or down. None of that matters if they don't look the same. And pitching, baked in with a 70% success rate, if you do your job right and all the pitches look the same, you stand at the greatest advantage in sports. And we're overcomplicating it to a point where that advantage is being diminished.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it and you go, okay, it's cart before horse. I'm not decrying, the position of front office guys not knowing enough, but they're devaluing the experience where you could come in and Wayne or Bill or I or Glennon or any guy who actually took the time to watch the game and look at it from a perspective of, hey, look, I have to do this stuff to survive, to literally survive out here. And you go, it's pretty simple, actually. And the simplicity of the approach is actually what puts a lot of these guys without experience on their heels, and they can't understand it. They can't understand it because, like Bill said, they've never done it. And I'm not faulting them for that. I'm just saying that if you really take it,
you really can't fault them.
I'm not faulting it. I'm saying it's a limitation.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go, look, it's very simple. If I throw the ball forward near the plate enough times, the hitter is greedy enough that he'll swing. And if I know what to throw next, I literally just throw that forward near the plate and he will swing again. And then every time he swings, it ups my odds for success. And they're like, no, but I need an induced vertical break of this. No, you're making it too hard.
Mm-hmm.
You're making it too hard. I'm frustrated in that, is that it's a very complicated game that you have to make very, very simple in order to succeed over a long period of time.
What a pitcher sees from 60 feet away is very important, and it's very applicable.
Yep. I mean, if I'm a hitter and I want a good approach, it's literally I want to hit the ball through the pitcher's face as hard as possible. So therefore, if I'm behind it, it's going to be oppo. If I'm ahead of it, it's going to be pull side because I'm using the whole field.
Bingo.
And you go, like, that's not a hard approach. I mean, like the Yankees, when they were off the charts good with Bernie and Posada and all those guys, they'd roll out there and just go, okay, there's between 7 and 12 hits out here and 4 to 6 walks. Who's going to get them? I don't know, but we're all going to take the same approach, and therefore we're freaking great.
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent point. Bill, your final thought on this before we?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. And
Sorry.
you and I actually, Chris, talked about this. No. We've all had our. Yeah. We all do it. It's all good. I think when finally realized that the 230 league batting average does not work, and we're going to stop swinging up at the ball because everybody's throwing fastballs up in the zone, and we're going to level things back out again. I think that the 2-seamer will come back into play, which isn't really a thing right now, and that is not a pitch that needs to be thrown at full max capacity power every single time. I think that might be one of the only ways we kind of get away from worrying about as hard as we could possibly throw it and as much movement as I could possibly get on the ball. I don't know when we're going to get there. It might be another 10 or 15 years, but there's going to come a time where it kind of comes back around again. And I think we've talked about this, Chris, on Totally Baseless, is they're going to start leveling the swing out again a little bit. And at that point in time, pitchers will start throwing back down in the zone again, which has kind of went away, other than the sweeper or the sliders that are thrown out of the strike zone, below the strike zone. And I think that might incorporate pitching involved a little bit more as opposed to throwing. And that could be a possible change. But I have a hard time believing that you wouldn't want Garrett Cole out there over some other guy that is Barrett Dole or whoever the hell he is that throws 97 and has a good breaking ball too. I don't know. Barrett Dole ain't worth a shit. I've never heard of him, but I know who Garrett Cole is.
Well, gentlemen, I thank you, and that's one hell of a way to end it before we go to our ombudsman, Rocco Constantino. Let us know what we screwed up, man.
I got a few things for you. Mike Scott was 14 strikeouts, game one of the 86 NLCS with that scuffed ball. Tyler Glasnow is an example of a guy. I mean, he had Tommy John in 2021. They came right out and said it's because they took the tacky spider tack away. Yeah. Said it right, plain and simple. And a good point, talking about how it's now these frontline starters who are suffering these injuries. Just last year, you had DeGrom, Sandy Alcantara, Felix Bautista, Robbie Ray, Shane McClanahan, Walker Buehler, all out with Tommy John. If you went back just 10 years, 2013, it was really just Matt Harvey. That was a frontline guy that was out. Maybe Dylan Bundy, too, was probably the second best guy. And if you went before John Smoltz in 2000 with his surgery, I mean, from between Tommy John and John Smoltz in 20-something years, really the only frontline starters were David Wells, Kerry Wood, and Jose Rio. So it's really has been a rash of the big name guys. And John Smoltz is the only Hall of Famer still who's had Tommy John surgery.
Holy
really?
Shit. And I knew I was onto something, but holy shit.
Yeah, good one.
Wow.
Billy, you're so smart.
And then last one, Willie T. Ribbs was a obscure IndyCar and NASCAR racer. He wrestled one Indy race ever and 4 NASCAR races ever. Then he got into competitive clay pigeon shooting. I have no idea how Bill would know who Willie T. Ribbs is.
I'm not as stupid as
the internet is a dark place.
No. I grew up watching racing, so I knew who Willie T. Ribbs was.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the name, and it's actually, I'm not going to tell you which accounts, but it is actually one of my passwords on, actually probably more than one on one of my accounts. Willie T. Ribbs is involved in that.
Can I ask you who the baseball equivalent of Willie T. Ribbs would be?
Man, do you have an answer already?
No. I'm just saying some Omir Santos type of character who.
That's a good question.
Billy P.
Yeah, I guess kind of obscure, but not. You would know the name, but don't know why.
All right.
Well, listen, gentlemen, thank you. It's been a pleasure as usual. For Wayne, Rocco, Bill, and Will, I am Chris Vitale. This has been Southpaw. Do that whole thing where you like and subscribe and join the channel and all that stuff. And we will see you next time on Southpaw.
DJ, spin that shit.
Yo, DJ, spin that shit.